I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will do roll call.
Andy Mary,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Here.
Mike Boldig,
Here.
Noel Deep,
Here.
Wayne Gagnon,
Here.
Jeannie Long,
Here.
Mary Neufeld,
Here.
Danny Pyatt,
Here.
JD Schrader.
Here.
Okay, we will go on to the consent agenda.
I move the board approve the minutes from the November 24, 2020 Board of Education meeting, financial report from November 2020, consideration of current bills, checks number 4327 to 4388 in the amount of $147,563.56, ACH number 202100398 through 202100469 in the amount of $647,686.29, and one wire transfer in the amount of $25,524.66 for a total of $820,774.51.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments on anything? Okay. Let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Balzer,
Yep.
Boldig,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Gagnon,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Neufeld,
Yes.
Pyatt,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. And we'll go on to public comment. Tim, is there? No.
Andy, if I may, just a couple of things. First off, I'd like to just note the passing of Mr. Tom Kretz, who was a member of the board for several years here, and that offer our condolences to his family. And he did a good job when he was here, and hopefully he'll do an even better job watching over us. We hope for that. And secondarily, I received in the mail this week a copy of the resolutions that'll be voted on this year down at the state convention. And fortunately, Danny was kind enough to bring me Jeannie's envelope too. So I gave a copy of the proposed resolutions to Mary Kay and asked her to make sure that a copy of those resolutions got to each and every board member. So that way at the committee of the whole meeting in January, we can discuss them. So I have an indication of how the board would like me to vote.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And as long as we're on things, Mary Kay passed out the access for the survey for the board. And I was thinking it would be good if we all took that sometime in January, so we're all kind of on the same page with the evaluation. So if we could all do that, and she'll email that out again sometime in
Reminder.
January. Okay. So we will go on to student representatives. The student representatives aren't here tonight, but Danny, would you like to read their reports?
What I have is Noel's. Noel's?
Yep, and Bailey added hers on that same document.
Okay. Do I need to refresh that?
You should have a little paragraph on the bottom
On the
that
bottom
says
of it?
school activities, and that's what
That's
Bailey added.
Bailey's, okay. Okay, so Noel says that the sports girls basketball had a game last night. They lost and the next game is on the 5th. Boys basketball will have their next game on the 12th at Northern Pines. Boys hockey has a game tonight at Tomahawk, so we wish them well. Wrestling had their home meet last Thursday. Unfortunately, they had to forfeit because they did not have enough wrestlers to get enough points. Next meet is on the 7th of January. Cheer team had their first game last night here at the girls varsity basketball team. Gymnastics had their first meet last night. Boys swim doesn't have a season this year, unfortunately. I know they would sound a whole lot better than me. Girls hockey is 3-4 right now. Girls hockey team was quarantined today due to head coach. School activities, this is from Bailey. Dress up days this week. Yesterday was Christmas pajamas. Today was Santa upperclassmen, elves underclassmen. And this is changing right in front of me.
It's Clint's plan.
This is awesome. Today is Ugly Sweater Day. Began forward exam prep for 8th grade, ACT prep for freshmen, sophomore, and juniors. Senior portfolio work for seniors is today. Several sports teams have been quarantined since the last board meeting, girls and boys hockey and girls and boys basketball. And that's all that I have.
Okay, thank you.
That's all the girls have.
Yeah.
The elf on the shelf, wherever they may be,
Yes, that
has
was,
been
that was nice.
rather humorous, and you look good in a trophy case.
Better in the trophy case than the back of the car.
And that, Danny, that really did say they lost their next game, so.
It did, huh? Okay. Yes, it did.
But, okay. So we'll go on to a COVID update here.
Okay, as you recall, the last time we were together, we discussed the CDC's guideline that we could shorten the quarantine period to 10 days, which we did as a district. And then Darlene, of course, updates the COVID dashboard. And then I have a list of the temporary remote learners. So it's a little tough to draw any solid conclusions, but I am happy to report that right now we have a total of 48 students out, and that's district-wide. 2 of those are temporary remote learners, and 7 staff members currently out in quarantine or isolation. Last time we met, the number was 42 total. So if you consider when we started tracking this in November, and due to staffing, also not just quarantining, but we had, our high was 232 out. So things are looking okay, all things considered, in terms of who is in person right now. And Danny, you mentioned that the girls' hockey team is the latest to have to quarantine. And that was just today, I believe. So there are a few other things I wanted to share with you during the COVID update. One, interestingly, comes from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. If you read the WASDA updates, they had one last week in their research study. I don't know if I'd say research, but they gathered data, and what they found is that on average, districts who began all virtually or all remotely, no in-person instruction, suffered a 3% larger decline in enrollment. I just thought that was interesting because you know that we had some students leave us for other options, as did all surrounding districts. So it appears that if you offered in-person instruction, you suffered fewer open enrollments out. Right now, I think what weighs most heavily on their minds, and I didn't think it would be anything other than safety related to COVID, but we have some students who just are not engaging remotely. And so, depending upon the level, we've tried a number of things. I was at North today, had a nice conversation with Donna and the teachers there. It is very difficult to insist or demand or find a way when a student is at home, regardless of the age, to have him or her show productivity and engage in the learning. So we've been talking about that a little bit. Wausau was just on the news, districts around us have the same issue. They publish their rate of failing grades, and it has more than doubled from last year because of the disengagement from remote learning. So one option would be, to look to the future when we can have them all back, but I'll get there in a minute. can we insist or force families to make the choice to come back in person? My personal and professional feeling is no, because we've given them the option. If they feel more comfortable, safety-wise, to remain at home, we have to follow through on that. So we're doing what we can. I know the high school routinely makes what they call yard visits, where they physically go to the home and try to connect with someone while being in their yard. And the difference, as you already know, is high school is credit-based, so the stakes are so high. And we just haven't found any way to have the students and their families feel that same angst we do, that time is critical and they have to start engaging. So for whatever that's worth, that's the struggle we have right now at all levels, all three. And then as second semester approaches, January 24th, we've kept you up to date with in-person learners, and middle school most recently added those who wanted to come back or are adding them after the first of the year. So we've been keeping up. Middle school is now over 80%, or will be over 80% in-person instruction. So we're really proud of that. But we just want the board to know that as the requests come in, or as we encourage families to come back in person, that rate will continue to rise. And obviously, if community rates, escalate, we'll be back here and discuss that with you. But right now, we don't see a reason that we can't continue to take people in person and do the best job we can mitigating. And the last thing I would say is that DPI issued a guidance document. I tried calling today and couldn't reach the person at DPI I need to, but we're seeking clarification. Deputy Superintendent Michael Thompson issued a long memo that says all districts are wondering what their options are now next year, because COVID has taught us a lot of things, and some families really like the remote option. So how are we going to respond to them? So his memo indicated districts really have two choices, well, three. One would be to go back to how we used to do it, where everybody is just expected to be in person. Two would be a virtual option, which is what we're doing now, or some semblance thereof. And finally, if you decide to go all virtual, which we would never suggest as a district, but if you do, you have to form a charter school, because that has to be governed as such. So my hypothetical question for DPI seeking clarification is, what if we did make the recommendation to the board that we have some kind of hybrid option? And we don't know what that would look like yet. After the first of the year, we'll elicit a lot of input from staff and families, certainly. But whatever we come to the board with a recommendation, whatever that looks like, does that count as a hybrid option? We just want to know before we go down a path from which we have to return. We want to know the parameters before we seek input. So I'm happy to try and answer any questions, or have my team answer any questions, those who are here, if the board has any.
Somebody asked me the other day what the other surrounding districts are doing. Are most of them in school 4 or 5 days a week, or any of like Stevens Point or anybody, are they all virtual, or is it only like Madison that's all virtual in high school?
I know the Fox Valley still has all virtuals in some districts, and Wausau most recently, right around the end of November, started going in person, and they actually adopted what we're doing, and it's 4 days a week. And so I think most around us have that hybrid model, where they either gave a choice or they're in person, like DC Everston, rotating. So maybe you go 2 days and are home 2 days at certain levels. Elementary, if anyone goes full-time in person, it's most likely elementary students.
So you were worried that we might possibly, if 20% of the kids next year want to stay virtual, does that keep us within? That's just, you're making sure that it's legal. It does not have to be a charter.
Right, and then we would want to make sure we have staff interested in accommodating that. Right now, we question, we know that option is not best for everyone, and then how do we help families and students select the option that would be most beneficial? That's a very delicate dance as we're doing right now, because some feel either strongly about learning remotely, as we said, just are not, they're not achieving, and that is so concerning.
Maybe on next year, we call it a new ball game, and we'll say, if you didn't try and do any work, you can't remote learn. And I don't know if, I mean, that's not budget friendly, but it's make them learn friendly. If they go
So-
somewhere else and just remote learn that way.
I mean, yeah,
And we did,
It's
yeah,
all-
well, not we, because it just rattles around up here until we have a meeting regarding it, but, you know, sometimes there is, at the high school, what is it called, like you earn a privilege of, I don't know if you do it anymore, but we used to have a privilege of leaving for lunch if you met certain criteria.
You could leave for an hour during your study hall.
So, you know, who knows, maybe at some level, we would say these are the criteria you have to meet if you're interested in remote instruction, second quarter, you know. But that's a lot of discussion and planning we'll have to do. But I was just happy, districts had been wondering aloud, when is guidance coming from DPI, and it recently did last week, so. Now we can start.
okay, just one more COVID question. Does anybody gather data? I know that somebody was telling me about some other school where when they have a COVID student, they just quarantine that student. They leave the rest of the class there. And they think that works, but thinking it works can be quite a range. But I was just wondering if anybody gathers data on that.
I thought I saw they were doing that in all of France a month ago or two, but now I have not followed up on that at all. It was just in the paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was somewhere in southern Wisconsin they were doing it.
Yeah, we have not looked into it here. We just went by what EPI, DHS, and CDC were recommending. So that's why we went with the outline or the strategies that we have in place.
Okay.
Would that make you super nervous? Or would you want to know what that school was doing?
It's not necessarily, because, you know, if somebody is sick at work, we don't take everybody else out. It's only that one employee who's quarantined at home if they're positive. If someone working down the corridor from me is sick, I don't have to stay home or get tested until and unless I have symptoms.
Yeah. So that's essentially what they're doing in some schools, but
Well, as long as they're following the masking and everything, because if you look at the criteria, it has to be that 15 minutes consolidated throughout if you look at the exposure time, and if everybody's following instructions, doesn't take their masks off, doesn't come in close contact with somebody, then you could potentially look at that.
okay. Do we want administration to look into that anymore, or should we just go with what we're doing seems to be working fairly well?
Until and unless there's a pushback or you have questions from families that it affects the learning,
Yeah.
then that would be something to look at that time.
Is most of the staff getting vaccinated in the near future, or is that?
We are just starting out tomorrow, getting our first doses. I think by the time you're looking at essential workers and everybody, you're probably maybe February, March at the minimum, at least for the teachers. So by the time you're looking at the general public, it may be probably summer.
I guess I was surprised. I didn't realize they didn't authorize it for kids under 16. So
It's
that
not, none of the vaccines, the Pfizer one is for 16 and older, Moderna is only 18 and older.
Darlene, you,
I just wanted to let you know, I know the question as far as isolate or quarantining if one student is ill. When we do get a student who is tested positive. I contact each of the teachers. And like I said, I think I reported last time that the teachers, there's some that's actually got 6-foot poles that they measure for me.
Yeah.
So we really look into it. To be honest, we really have not had to isolate or quarantine a lot of the kids. The biggest groups of kids come from the individual pods who spend all day together. That's where you get the largest amount of kids that are quarantined. And that is per public health recommendation, because they're in the same room all day. And you don't know how much time they've spent in that 7.5 hours, how much time they come in close contact, because they go to lunch together, they go out to playgrounds together, they, do projects together. So that is where the biggest amount of the kids come from. Middle school, we get to we get the pods yet at the middle school. High school, the teachers are doing the best they can with the kids that they have in the rooms, and they're doing a fantastic job of making sure that they're outside of that 6-foot range. So, I think that they're really doing well with that. And I think we have not had a school transmission. All the transmissions so far that we have had have been community-based. To me, I think that says volumes as to how well it's really working.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, yeah. Better to be on the safer side than the other side. So, okay, we'll just leave that.
Oh, I
Or-
have two questions. Okay, the lists have come out about the essential workers, the ones that are supposed to be able to get the shots first. Okay, so I saw one list where teachers were listed as essential workers and school employees, but then I saw another list where it was tier A or tier 1, tier 2. Are teachers going to be in that first group? Okay, my next question is, what about subs? I think we don't have very many subs. I mean,
They'll probably come under the same K to 12
They could come under the
essential
same thing?
workers.
okay,
Because right now we have, the recommendations so far have only been for 1A from the ACIP. They have not commented on the others as of now. The advisory council that met earlier this month only talked about making this recommendation of the vaccines for only the category 1A. They said they will come back in January sometime and then make additional recommendations about those. And I think it also depends on the availability of the vaccines, because if you look at it, the data says that you have probably about estimated 3 million long-term care and 21 million healthcare workers in the country. Then you get into the next category, that's about 87 million people in that essential worker category. So that's about 112 million. And you need twice that number of doses. Right now, I believe they are aiming at anywhere from 5 to 10 million doses a week. So it's 2.5 to 5 million people that can be vaccinated every week. So that's probably looking at, that's why I said maybe February, March when we start having those
Okay.
discussions.
Okay, and my next question was, Julie, on Friday when we got the weekend review, you had attached that memo about, from the FFCRA about the December 31st being the end of. Okay, so is there a possibility that that's going to change?
We keep waiting, and I would say no, not before December 31st, because we've been waiting, every meeting any of us has. We check in with our colleagues and legislators wondering if there's something additional coming, and there simply is not now. Does it mean that, it won't come after the first of the year? I can't speak to that. I'm sure it could, but.
Okay, can something be done locally? I mean, at the local level, can we do something for our employees?
Yes, so we've met a lot on this, and what Mary's talking about is the government, of course, allowed with legislation us to give people paid time off if they had to quarantine. Well, that has expired, so will expire. the 31st. Were you gonna correct me, Tim?
Nope.
Oh, I thought you were gonna jump on that, on the 31st. So what we sent out and shared with the board is if you are able to work from home and you have to quarantine, we should be good to go. That's what we've been doing, right? And then you don't have to take any time and work goes on. The rub comes in if you are not able to do your job from home. I'll use like Jake's department as an example. It is an impossibility for, anyone in his department to work from home. So then what does that mean? That means that we'll have to start looking at sick leave to be paid. Certainly unpaid leave is an option, but we'd like to exhaust paid possibilities first. And I think it's a minimum, Tim, 10 days sick leave, employees get a year.
Yeah.
So, we're hopeful that we can help most people through this, especially with rates improving if they do.
Because I was just wondering who determines if, I would think that an employee who's doing their job and who's dedicated to their job will do everything they can to do that, to work from home. If, let's say they're quarantined or they test positive or whatever.
Oh, yes, and that's what we're finding. It's gone
And,
really well.
I'm thinking, like when this whole first thing started, I know that there were some teachers that this whole remote virtual learning was like,
Yep.
and just kind of stopped. So I was wondering about, how that's, I would hate to find, to have somebody be, what's the word I'm looking for, like pressured if they're not feeling good enough to, let's say one day you feel good and then the next day you don't feel good. How would that be determined? But that's all something that can be worked.
Do you mean if I'm working from home?
Yeah.
One day? I think it would just be a matter of if I'm in quarantine or I test positive and I'm teaching remotely and I'm not well enough or not feeling well enough to teach that day, just like any other day, I would alert my supervisor, make sure the students know, and then we go to Plan B.
And Mary, if I
Does
can
that
add,
answer your
Yeah.
question?
You heard earlier, Dr. Sprague mentioned that we're having in January, more students come back. Well, as we have more kids coming back, we have less opportunities for people to work remotely because we have more kids in the building. So there is a balancing act between needing staff here in the building to serve the students here versus the students working remotely. And so that's really the fence we're kind of walking on.
You don't think you could just put the teacher on a screen and let all the kids sit in the room alone and watch?
Not alone, but we do have teachers on a screen and then we have a supervisor in there, as you know. Yep.
Are we gonna send out another survey to see if more people wanna come back, or are we just taking them back as they come?
We are. Amy has already drafted one. After the first of the year, we'll send it and get an indication about the second half of the school year. And also, the state is encouraging us to get a digital access update from our families and ask formally how reliable, and I shouldn't say formally because we've asked before, but ask again, do you have reliable internet access so that the state has an overall picture of data and what it's telling us.
Are we getting any complaints that our hotspots are not enough, providing enough data for the teachers to do it remotely or the students, or is it okay?
Dustin is here. I think that when we first started, we had a number of connectivity issues, but some of it was logging in, unfamiliarity as well. So some of that we've worked out the kinks, but Dustin, I don't know how many you feel these days about.
Not very many at all, and we did have to increase the daily limit for the hotspots, and that, obviously improved. We rarely get any calls, so for the people that are using them now, it's working really well.
Did it cost us a lot more money to increase the data limits, or was it just like a?
No, we actually bought we bought like a pool of data. And so, we ended up, not as many people, needed them as we had planned, since we had planned for, like sending everybody home, how many would we need, so, that's kind of how we ended up with the surplus of data that we could.
Spring Valley and Pleasant View and whatnot, are they still broadcasting internet, or is that shut off?
It shut off.
I would assume since we don't own them anymore.
Just to give you an FYI, the second half of the school year subscription, so the Kajits that we purchased with the data plan is expiring in February. And Mark is just in the process of negotiating that second half of the school year. And we've got about maybe 2/3 of the devices that we need to have active at any one point in time. And the data plan that he's purchasing is at just about $40,000 for the last half of the school year. And again, we'll use CARES Act money to pay for that.
Okay. So is that it for COVID? All right, then we will move on. As soon as my computer starts again. We'll go on to new business, and item A is to approve committee of the whole minutes from December 8th.
I move the board approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting on December 8, 2020.
Second.
Any-
second.
Dan's got it. Any questions or comments? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then we'll go on to board action items and consideration to approve the 2021-2022 budget calendar.
I move the board approve the 2021-2022 budget calendar as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Tim went over this at the COW meeting, and
The only other item that wasn't on there is I did add in March, I've asked Jake to be ready to discuss the 10-year capital improvement plan at the committee of the whole meeting.
okay. Okay. Then we will just take a voice vote on this, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll go on to consideration to approve the City of Antigo Ball Field Agreement for 2021 season.
I move the board approve the City of Antigo Ball Field Agreement for 2021 season as presented.
Seconded.
And we also went over this at COW, but does anybody have any questions or comments on it? Then we'll do a voice vote on this also. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes, and we'll go on to item C, consideration to approve semester graduates.
I move the board approve the 2020-2021 semester graduates as presented.
Second.
Okay, and we looked at this a little bit at COW also, but does anybody have any questions or comments on these? I see that you've added in what they might be doing after, with the next semester at least. And thank you for doing that. But any other questions or comments?
I would just offer if any of you are partaking in portfolio night, if, I think Bree Kretz sent an email to the board asking if you were interested, then you'll hear from some of these folks about their plans as well.
Okay. Then we'll do a voice vote on this. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll go on to item D, consideration to approve the 2021 the 2020/2021 Crisis Action Plan.
I move the board approve the 2020-2021 Crisis Action Plan as presented.
Second.
Second.
And any questions or comments here? And Jake?
One thing I do want to add, with the crisis plan, when we start looking at Heidi's world and all the mental health aspects of this, there are some things in this version right now that do need to be updated. Heidi's already started a lot of that work. There's so much in this document that it's almost really a working plan more than anything, so there may be some things in there that aren't 100% where we want to be, but we're working on them, and as we get those, it's a natural thing where this document starts to grow, so we really have to watch how user-friendly we leave it, if that makes sense. We don't want 500 pages to have to sort through it in a crisis, so there's a lot of information in there, there's a lot of work being done that we'll continue to integrate, but, yearly we have to draw a line, and that is what it is, but we're continuously working as a team to update that. A lot of that isn't necessarily in my forte, but Heidi's doing a lot of good work. I don't know if you want to add, but when we look into the suicide prevention, things like that, it gets pretty complex, and we got a lot of good work done, but there's more to come, so we'll continue to update that as it goes. So.
Okay,
And
sounds
then,
good.
any further questions, I guess?
Okay, so it looks like no questions, so we'll go ahead and do a voice vote on this also. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. We'll go on to item E, health insurance vendor recommendation.
I move the board authorize administration to enter into a service agreement with R&R Insurance Services, Inc. for employee benefits consulting.
I'll second.
Okay, do you have something, Tim?
Well, the only thing to add is, included in the documents are the RFP that we sent the various vendors that we were interested. You see a listing there of the insurance committee members that were able to attend those virtual interviews. And then there's a summary of the, kind of like the compensation. And essentially, we've been with Ansey and Associates or Benefit Partners before that, and it was essentially the same company for, it's probably the better part of 20 years. And we were thinking the analytics and the review process that R&R presented just appealed to the committee members, and that's their recommendation.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
So essentially, we're using this firm to guide us through the insurance process on everything from long-term disability, life, dental, and health insurance. So there are experts when we go through the renewal process.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and do our roll call.
Bolduc,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Gagnon,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Newfeld,
Yes.
Hyatt,
I recuse.
Schrader,
Yes.
Balzer,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. Okay, that passes. We'll go on to item F, consideration to approve the district new hires.
I move the board approve Hannah Malachinsky, part-time special education instructional assistant, effective January 4, 2021.
Second.
Then.
Okay, good job on that name, Mike, I think.
Yeah, right.
Enunciation.
Okay, any questions or comments? Then we'll do a voice vote on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we'll go on to the report of donations.
I move the board accept the following donations. $2,000 from Thomas Scotts for the Nebokan Lodge building project. $500 from Brian and Karen Prunty for the Nebokan Lodge building project. $16,000 from Sunnytalk Foundation for the Nebokan Lodge building project. $1,590 for the John Roberts Memorial. $1,915 for the Carol Genther Memorial. $820 from NRPAC for the Nebokan Lodge building project. $500 from Benjamin and Carrie Zalazowski for Nebokan Lodge building project. $2,650 from Anigo Fireplace for the Nebokan Lodge building project fireplace. $500 from Lissel Family Private Foundation for Nebokan Lodge building project. $1,000 from Timothy and Rose Prunty for the Nebokan Lodge building project. And $500 from Gary and Nancy Whitman for the Nebokan Lodge building project, for a total of $27,975.
Second.
Okay, so we'd like to thank all those people who donated. It's a pretty generous month.
Very generous.
And Tim, could you just tell us about how the fundraising for the Nebokan is coming along? At some point, you needed another $75,000.
Well, and that's really to finish the whole project off, and I haven't added these donations onto what we have. We're getting close, but, our contingency, we essentially are building without a contingency, and so far things are going quite well. I was up there today looking at it, and I would say the rough-in framing is about maybe 50% finished, and they're hoping that the week after the new year, they're able to be close to being roughed in. So I can't answer your question directly, but I'll review that tomorrow, and I can send out an email to the group.
Okay.
What is Sonoscape?
County materials. So essentially, we got the concrete for the project all donated.
Okay. And Mary Kay, we took a vote on this already. Or not?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, we had a first and a second. I misled you.
Okay. Any other comments or?
No, just what you said earlier. The community stepped up once again like they've been doing time after time after time, and we really do appreciate it.
Yes. Okay, with that, we will go ahead and do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, and that passes. And just confirm the next meeting would be January 26th. And
Motion to adjourn?
yeah, I guess we're not interfering with convention this year.
Nope.
Okay. So, okay, we got a motion to adjourn here, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Merry Christmas, everybody.